Happy 2021, everybody. Welcome to another podcast of the NFL GMs League. This is Vikings, and joining me is, speaking of changes, which is the title of this podcast, the new co-commish of the league. Chris, moving on up, my man.
I am. I'm slowly expanding my power that I have in this league. A couple more years should be complete, and then I'll just swap everyone out for people I actually like, and that's how the league will end. No, but
Chris, I've been in enough leagues with you that know that you don't like playing this game with anyone you like.
I don't like
I don't like doing
anybody in my
anything
leagues.
like.
No. In all seriousness, it's great that 2020 is over. Looking forward to this year in the league. Looking forward to some of the changes that Jeremy's implementing here, and yeah, ready to go through them.
Yep, absolutely. So what we're going to do tonight is not get into our normal banter of, talking shit about teams, ranking teams, stuff like that, talking about trades because, well, there are no trades to talk about. So the goal here is to kind of go through some of the changes to the bylaws, welcome some of the new owners, maybe go over some of the basics of the league for them to be able to pick things up there. And then, just kind of take it from there. And then as people start to understand and get their feet under them, maybe some trades will get happening and we'll get a updated cast here in the next week or so to talk through that stuff a little bit more. So, Chris, anything you want to add before we jump into this?
No, let's go ahead and get going.
All right. So, changes to the bylaws this year. So, looks like some minor cleaning up, except for I think it was two major changes, right?
Yeah, I'd say two major changes. Probably two minor changes to go with that, and then the rest was just some cleanup of language that we've had in there as we went through it. But I think we start with the smaller things, work our way up towards the largest change. We'll leave that toward the end because that should be the most fun to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll go through some of the small stuff here.
Yeah.
And talk in depth about the big stuff because that's going to be more fun anyway. So again, in terms of the changes, it was removing some of the stuff that was put in there to help with the COVID-19 situation in terms of the schedule, or the impact on the schedule rules and stuff like that. Basically cleaning things up to anticipate potential expansion of the schedule from 16 to 17 or 18 games. Cleaning up language around extensions and fifth-year options, since next year will be the first year of the fifth-year options that start coming into place. Again, a little bit more about the comp pick formula, really trying to help with that because I know 2 or 3 years ago, it was almost every team was getting all of the comp picks, and from a year's perspective, from an allocation perspective, and everything, that's sort of just a mess. So again, continuing to get that more under control. A little bit more around what is defined as inactivity, and then some additional stuff around taxi theft. I think there's probably a couple more things that could have been done in terms of, say, the year without trading back. I know that was intended to do and stuff like that, but I think all in all, this got most, if not all, of the small items that kind of were driving us a little bit crazy.
Yeah, always closing loopholes every year. But along with closing those up, actually trying to enhance some of the features that we have in there. One of the things you touched on was bidding on those tagged players and winning them. We haven't seen much activity at all, I don't think, in this league to date anyway. Trying to get some motivation to bid on a tagged player, because up to this point, you bid on a tagged player, you only get them for a year and you lose an equivalent rookie pick when you acquire them. Now we're looking to actually give teams the option to put their contract at 2 years when they win the player, which would then give them the option to extend them beyond that if they want to. So they actually get something out of losing their pick rather than just a 1-year rental.
Yeah, no, because that's always the tough thing is in a franchise tag situation in the NFL, you're negotiating with a long-term deal in most cases, unless you're Jerry Jones and you're just a complete idiot. But the idea is we're going to keep them under control, and then either we're going to keep them under control on 1-year deals like that, or it's I'm tagging them until I get the long-term deal situation. So anything to get us closer to real life there is helpful, but at the same time, we don't want to make it too easy for life, because then that makes free agency just a mess.
Yep.
All right, so that's kind of the small stuff. Do you want to go into the two big items?
Yeah, I was looking through See if there's anything else. You touched on the 5th-year option. I do want to clarify a bit on the call here, because we've had questions on that. We've went through questions on that on previous years. I know I've had plenty of questions on it when I bugged Jeremy and Goose when he was still here on how exactly that all gets applied. So this is me just spewing out some info, whether or not you want to hear it or not. But it's actually during the season this year is when owners will start making declarations for their 5th-year options that they want to keep. So any of those rookies that were drafted in the 1st round, you have the option to go ahead and extend to 5th year or do the 5th-year option. That gets declared during their 4th year. So after rollover, February 14th into 15th, you can then start declaring them when they're in their 4th year if you want to keep them for their 5th. We had to clarify a bit to say, all right, their 5th-year salary gets calculated the moment they do that declaration. We'd look at, what the bylaws state for how you calculate that salary. That is stored. It doesn't actually go into effect that season until, their 5th year, and then that salary would take effect. However, if you're exercising a 5th-year option for a player, there's a good chance you want to keep them beyond the 5th year, which means you have to declare their 5th year during their 4th year, but then you also extend them during their 4th year,
Right.
which you then get hit with that new salary when you do the extension. So rather than putting off that salary increase to the 5th year, it uses what that salary would be, calculates the extension on top of that, and then that hits you the moment you do the extension. So I think we're going to have a few owners that are going to be running into this. They're going to have to juggle contracts a bit and determine when they want to take that hit and if they want to keep their players beyond, the first 5 years.
Yep. So again, to try and put your situation here to maybe a real life example. So if I've got a running back, say, there for on a $2.5 million contract, let's call it, going into his 4th year, and I declare that I want him for his 5th year. His 5th year calculates to $10 million. Again, I'm just using big round numbers to keep this simple here. So my year 4 salary for that player that's going to be shown is $2.5 million. The $10 million gets stored for a 5th year, but if I want to do an extension, that would be based off the $10 million, and any extension would then be that new salary into year 4.
Yeah. So right when just like now, if you do an extension on any player, the moment Jeremy calculates that, you add the years, you put the new salary in place. Same thing applies there. So you can't put off that 10 million. It'd be that 10 million plus or whatever that gets hit when you add the years on.
Right. So again, there is a strategy towards when to exercise this. This, and again, it's going to be different for everybody because some people are going to have the flexibility and ability to wait to later in the season to not take the big cap hit, and others aren't. And frankly, once the playoffs start, you're kind of SOL. So just making sure you're on top of these things is going to be really important for people. So. No, I think that's something that I've asked about in the past couple of years, so it's good to really get good clarity around and good language around here because we're going to start getting into it, and that's when this league really is going to start going wild.
Yep.
All right. So speaking of some of the things making the league go wild, let's talk about the Pro Bowl.
The Pro Bowl, yes, your original idea, suggested through, and it got picked up right away. When we iterated on a few ideas around it, and yeah, I'm definitely excited.
This is one of those things where I enjoy self-deprecation and making my life harder as much as I can. So if I look at players like, again, examples on my team, Kenny Golladay, Austin Eckler, some of these guys who were in the original startup and locked in at lower salaries, who can kind of maintain those salaries forever and ever and ever. There's a overwhelming advantage to those kind of players right now. Yep. And again, we're trying to make this league model the real life NFL as much as we can. So you get guys like, for example, George Kittle, who's a 5th round steal. Great. You get an absolute gem of a contract for the first 4 years. But at some point, boys got to get paid. So this is the idea of when a player would make the Pro Bowl, from that point forward, any contract extension would be treated as either an extension or a renegotiation, whichever is higher. Correct. So, for example, I use I use Austin Eckler as my example. I think right now he's like in terms of point per game RB7 or something. So instead of getting the extension, which is a couple, probably 10% increase on $1 million contract, which is very palatable, it would bump him up to a $10 million player, well in line with
Yep.
where he is in terms of his skill set and his value in the league. So again, there are certain players and certain teams who have found this loophole and been able to exploit it, and this is going to hopefully close some of that. But it's also going to add a little bit of fun. And I know Jeremy was toying with some ideas of what could be potential benefits for each conference winning without completely overpowering it and stuff like that. But I think it's a fun idea, and if nothing else, it's bragging rights to be able to say, hey, it's kind of cool that half of my offense started for the NFC this week 17, and my defense, I had Chase Young and Buckner and Martinez. It's like, okay, and 7 of my players were starters in the back end of it, but hey, I'm a round one knockout because highest matchup scoring of all time. But sometimes it's tough to get to the game.
Sometimes it is. But yeah, there are so many things I love about how this is set up. One is, again, the idea that it mimics the real life Pro Bowl in terms of we take the top players from both the AFC and the NFC. And this got a little confusing when we were putting the list together for this year because it's the AFC and NFC from, our league, not from the real AFC and NFC. So you'll see, guys that you don't expect in each conference when they get lined up. If you look at the bylaws, you can see the amounts of players we have from each position. It was originally based off of kind of, again, trying to mimic real life, how many players go to the Pro Bowl from each position. It then had to be adjusted slightly to account for, position limits and the importance of each position inside of this league. So we toyed with the numbers, what players popped in there. I was both excited and kind of heartbroken to see a number of my guys end up in the list as we were putting it together if it would have been for this year. But that adds a bit of excitement to it. Because again, it's not a foolproof way to ensure contracts are, it's not a foolproof way to eliminate the price lock contracts, those guys locked in on a low amount. Again, it doesn't go into effect until after week 16 of next year when the players are declared. You can extend them during this coming year prior to that point if you think your guy's going to hit the Pro Bowl. And that's where it adds a little bit of strategy to it once again. If you have a guy on a low contract, an extension is going to be coming up either this year or next year, you think he might be in the Pro Bowl, do you go ahead and lock him in early with the extension to keep that contract low? Or do you risk it, wait till next year when you've got more salary and just hope he doesn't fall into that bucket? Because again, just because he hits the Pro Bowl one year doesn't mean he's going to be in there next year if he doesn't average enough points per game. It lasts from the time that player would be counted as a renegotiation or extension if he's in it is from when he wins that Pro Bowl or once he makes the Pro Bowl until next year when the next set of players are declared for it, which again makes it fun. I've got a couple low guys that I'll be looking at extending either, this offseason or early during next year, just to try and ensure I keep the contract at a reasonable value, which might be taking a bigger risk if I don't wait till the end of the year. But again, I've got to balance a lot of contracts to make it work.
Hey, that's what happens when you're a winning team these days. And again, I think help with the parity and the competitiveness of the league is going to be better for all of us long run. Because what would be a lot of fun is the draft is a lot of fun. Like there's all sorts of moving parts, players move all over the place, picks moves all over the place. It's always been a lot of fun in this league. Free agency is just kind of a freaking shit show.
Yep.
Where it's like, hey, how do I spend $20 million on Emmanuel Sanders or $18 million on Larry Fitzgerald? Where it's like, this isn't mimicking real life at all right now. Yep. But people have cap available, and that's what they can spend it on. So that's what they spend it on. So hopefully this helps kind of balance things out a little bit. And I don't think it's going to be perfect year one, but I think it's going to be some good trial and error, another tool to help drive parity and drive movement for teams.
Yep, for sure. And I haven't ran the numbers yet, but with this upcoming year, with the fifth-year options and the extensions beyond that, more of the rookies that are going to have to be extended that aren't on the first-year deal, that are on their rookie contract but not the first round, where they get treated as a renegotiation. I think we're going to see a lot more teams run into cap issues or actually have to move players that they otherwise wouldn't. this year, next year, probably the year following, especially if the NFL cap doesn't raise and we end up freezing our cap after this year. It's getting exciting because I'm looking at my team and I'm going to be one of those teams that may be in a bit of trouble after a couple of years here, and you'll have to move players you don't want to just to balance it, which again mimics real life. You can't keep everybody you want on your team. You have to make moves.
Yeah, you hear that, guys? You have to make moves. Let's actually make a trade. Let's go. I mean, we were complaining for so long, and it's been almost a full day and a half here, and we haven't made a single trade yet. So your commissioner just told you to get your butts on there and start making some trade offers. Let's get this thing rolling. Speaking of making trade offers, though, we've got a couple new teams to welcome to the fold here. So, as mentioned, we've had some turnover this year. In terms of owners that left us, let's see, we have new owners, I believe, for Browns, for Titans,
Bears,
Texans, for
and the
Bears,
Titans, Texans, and Browns are the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
I think that's that. I think Buccaneers was a late change, right? In season, but I don't know if we covered that. But yeah, I think those are the main ones.
Jeremy is confirming from off pod that is it. So we got the microphone in the air.
I appreciate that he's monitoring the podcast,
but he's just making sure he's ensuring that, or this is like my audition. Make sure I keep my job and don't screw it up here.
No. So it's not even you, Chris. It's when we started doing this whole podcasting with our leagues thing, it was because Jeremy, myself, Lewis, and Santi were bored on a Friday night and said, hey, let's jump on and do a podcast for our Game of Thrones league. So Jeremy was the original, lead of this whole podcast thing. And then as he's kind of had other things kind of step up in his life that he's had to take responsibility for, I've just kind of picked it up and run with it. But Jeremy was the OG for this, and to see him kind of monitoring the pod without joining it, gives me some smiles that he's watching. But at the same time, it's like, dude, just join the pod.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's enough. That's enough shaming.
Yep.
Anyways, so talking about our new owners here. So again, Browns definitely had a turnaround to do, but I think he's successfully done that and left that team in good shape. And you were the one bringing over Bluth to take over Browns, right?
Yes, I did. Yep. So I know him from another league that we play in. Again, it's an active owner. Can be controversial, but we need some of that in our leagues. Make sure we get the discussion. So as he gets used to the league, I'm sure some combos will break out among the more opinionated owners we have in here, which is good. But I'm looking forward to it. It's a weird offseason where we had at least 3 strong rosters, and even the Titans isn't that bad of a roster, be vacated. So we have new owners stepping into relatively solid teams, which is not a common thing we've had in years past.
Right. And I mean, to your exact point, next I had here is Titans, and that's Luigi, who I'm in quite a few leagues with. That's one of those teams that I think Luigi would have rather stepped into that team last year when it had all of those picks, and he could have made different picks and maybe not had a 3-13 record. But he is very good at taking a roster of young potential and movable pieces and shaping it into a winner. So I think that's going to be a good piece of clay in his hands to get that and make the AFC South a much tougher division, because Texans has just kind of run roughshod through that the last couple of years. So making things a little bit tighter there. And I'm sorry, I leave it out. The other Chris 1.0, since he's older, he had kind of been in the lead in main contention for that, but his questionable QB decisions made this year a little bit tougher and but good news, he's got Trubisky locked up for the next 5 years.
Ooh, yikes! Yep.
But anyways, welcome Titans. Texans was kind of an unexpected one. I'd been in a couple of leagues with Charlie before where he was commish. So the fact that he had to step away from Dynasty altogether was kind of a surprise. But it seems like we're in good hands with our new owner here. Was that someone that you had recruited, or Jeremy had recruited, or was it a referral, or?
I believe it was a referral. I don't know who he is, so I don't know. Maybe he's amazing. Maybe he's a deadbeat. But I would bet against that. Jeremy vets everybody that comes in, so I don't know him.
Yeah, sorry, and sorry, Jeff. I mean, we need to talk about you in third person. It's like, hey, do you know this guy? But again, we're looking forward to getting to know you and trading with you and kind of getting to understand your style here and how you're going to make the Texans around here. And again, there's worse situations to come into than a 13-3 net record. Yep. Josh Allen on that contract is. But definitely going to be some challenging decisions on other parts of this roster. The mythical Corey Davis contract, David Johnson getting paid $9 million a year, and then parts of the defense that are getting up in age too. So it's going to take some skillful managing to stay at the top. But hopefully Jeff's up to it.
I will say Corey Davis finally did something, which makes the contract a little less painful, but. Oh my God! It's still 4 more years of $16.7 million. That's
even more because it'll escalate this year. So
right, yeah, yep.
Let's see. Moving through here to the Bears, I think are the next one.
Bears,
right?
Yes. It's going to be weird not having Goose run the Bears. I will.
I'm just thrilled not to have both commissions in my division. I've had to contend with all sorts of what I'll call underhanded and shady behavior in the benefits of the Packers and the Bears the last couple of years. So I'm kind of excited to have a new Bears ownership. I'm sure he's going to bring his own flavor to the Bears. And Andy's going to do a great job with the team. And he's been left, again, like you said, a very strong roster, one that's been in the hunt of stuff for the last couple of years. But again, it's going to be a matter of Goose had a very specific style with the players he wanted, the salary he wanted to carry, the years he wanted to carry, and how he wanted to manage that team and kind of rotate things to keep it successful. And again, I think one of the things we've noticed in this league is every owner has their own style. So it'll be interesting to see what Andy's style is, if he's done leagues like this before and kind of what experience he's coming to bring in this. Will he try and continue the Goose method? Will he, change it and still find success? It'll be a fun thing to see.
Yeah, for sure. And like we've mentioned before, and if you haven't watched pods before this, you might be a little lost, or if you haven't played against Goose and the Bears before, but the unique roster style is an understatement. It's just going to be weird not having the Goose method present on that team. Yeah, the collection of average to good players, and just swarms of them every year is something to behold. So.
I compare it to, and I may be either dating myself or showing all of my nerd colors here, but hey, I'm on a podcast about Dynasty Fantasy Football here. My nerd chops are pretty well established. But if you ever played the game StarCraft, there was something called the
God,
where people would hit your base with 6 of these offensive units that they could get out there so quickly that you usually couldn't get a reasonable defense up in against it, and would just kind of cripple you for the game. Goose was the Zergling Rush personified in a team here. None of these guys were particularly robust. Like, look at the largest contract on his team right now. We're talking about Whitney Merciless and Adrian Peterson.
Yep.
But it's just swarms of them. You kill the first couple and you're like, okay, I survived this one. Then you check the score at 5 o'clock and somehow he's got 230 points. It's like, well, where the hell did that come from?
Yep.
Either way, he will be missed, but welcome, Andy. Happy to have you in the league, and you're stepping into a pretty solid team, one that we think very highly of. So, but those are the 4 new owners here. We had a couple, as mentioned, join us during the year last year. So this, I think, will be their first full off season with us. But we are kicking off, and it's going to be a fun couple of weeks here. So training just reopened yesterday. I know there's been offers and conversation on the league chat about everything, but nothing yet, which is surprising because normally it's things are kind of flying fast and furious. But I guess just kind of with the 7 playoff teams and a little bit more uncertainty about the offseason and the cap, I feel like people are being a little more timid this year.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone's more timid or if everyone hasn't had a chance to check in yet or give it more thought. I know there's been a solid core of us on there at least chatting about it, but yeah, I expect to see that change. It's just maybe a lull early on in the season. I'm definitely looking on making some moves here. I've been pinging people directly, and we'll just keep working through my list, see if I can find something.
Well, yeah, and I'll be honest, the no trade back for a year thing is kind of hampering my style here because of the amount of deals I've made. It's made it very difficult to trade these guys for things. Like, for example, Washington football team has Tyreek Hill, like Dalvin Cook, and a few other guys that I traded him. It's like, okay, I look at your trade bait, and the only player I can trade for here legally is Tom Brady. It's like, so again, for the active owners like me who are, probably trading too much, it's a little bit of a tough putt to make these things happen. But hey, I've had to send a lot of new offers to owners I don't normally send stuff to. So hey, that's a good thing also.
Yep.
But seriously, guys, let's get some moves going here. I decided not to demean the league with a swap of 5th-round picks as the opening trade salvo, but I'll tell you what, that's starting to look like a very reasonable offer right
now. I'm sure it is.
All right, I know we usually go longer than the half hour, but I think we kind of wanted to keep to the new stuff tonight, and we'll schedule some time either later this week or next week to get some larger groups on if some of the new owners want to join us and kind of introduce themselves and stuff like that, similar to how RJ did when he took over the Eagles. I think that'd be great, and just kind of get into the off-season conversations, either division by division or power ranking style, and we'll start breaking things down. But Chris, anything major else you wanted to talk about before we close it down for tonight?
Nothing else. Looking forward to the year. I'm glad we got the new owners in. Join us next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, no matter what's happening in the real world, hopefully this continues to be a good escape and a positive channel for everybody. So, things kind of crazy right now, but at the same time, hopefully everybody's safe, everyone's healthy, and hopefully everyone's excited for a fun, enjoyable off season. So be well, and we'll talk to you guys later.
See you, everyone.